Tight hips. Most people think it means that they need to stretch more. But what if I told you that tight hips have absolutely nothing to do with flexibility? But before we dive in, my name is Naraya, and I'm the owner of Iron City Biomechanics here in Vestavia Hills. And we help bridge the gap between healthcare and fitness by rebuilding the patterns behind the pain, not just the symptoms. And tight hips are one of the most misunderstood problems people deal with. If you've stretched your hips over and over and nothing has changed, if your hips feel tight every morning, if your lower back stays stiff after long periods of sitting, there is a reason for that. And no, it's not because you're getting older. I get that a lot. It's really because your body is holding tension in a way that your hips can't escape. So I had a client who came in recently and said, I stretch my hips every day and they're still tight. I don't understand what's going on. And so I had to walk her through some things and really explain to her what was happening and why that was taking place. And I actually had her take a few steps and just physically walk, and really show her that her glutes weren't firing, that her ribs were out of alignment, and her hips weren't tight because they needed more strength or more flexibility. Her hips were tight because they were protecting her for something a lot deeper. You see, tight hips are rarely a muscle problem. They're a pattern problem. Your body tightens the hips when your core isn't stable, when your fascia is gripping and the muscles can't really glide, when your pelvis and your ribs aren't aligned, when your walk is uneven, when your nervous system is stressed, when your glutes aren't contributing. It's so much, right? Or lastly, when the side of your body is compensating for the other side. All of those things take a toll on the body. And so your hips are basically saying, I don't feel safe. I need to lock up. And so it's a protective mechanism. And so stretching doesn't change the reason that they're locking down. Fascia is the connective web that links everything in your body. It reacts to stress, posture, breath, and movement. If your fascia feels pulled or twisted, compressed, or unstable, it tightens up everything around it, including, yes, the hips. And so this is why people stretch and feel tight again 20 minutes later. The fascia relocks. To change hip tension, you have to change the system, not the muscle. Another cause of hip tightness is a weak or disconnected core. And I'm not talking about, crunches or sit-ups. I mean your core and pelvis not working in harmony. And so if your ribs flare, if your pelvis tilts forward or backwards, even if your breath lives in your chest instead of your ribs, your hip step isn't stabilized. That's not your hip's job. But they will do it, and they will eventually start to tighten up because of that process that I just mentioned. And now let's talk about walking. The movement we do more than anything. You can stretch for 30 seconds. You can do all those things, but if your gait is off, your hips will tighten to compensate. Common patterns include hip hiking, foot collapse, uneven rotation, pelvis shifting from side to side, the rib cage not rotating properly, and the glutes aren't activating. And so your hips get pulled into tension all day long. So stretching is not stronger than 20,000 steps. You got to fix your gait, and then the hips can relax. Here's something most people never think about either. Your hips are connected to your stress response. So when your nervous system stays alert or overwhelmed, your hips tighten up. It's a protective measure. It's primal. So that fight or flight that we all are familiar with. And so stretching can't undo a nervous system that's bracing all day. So what actually helps tight hips? Number one is you have to reset your rib to pelvis alignment. This reconnects your core so that the hips don't have to stabilize everything. And number two is activating your glutes consistently. When your glutes do their job, your hips don't have to grip for support. Number three is just improving your walking patterns. This is by far the biggest long-term fix. Number four is calming the nervous system. Slow your nasal breathing down. This will help reduce the hip tension faster than stretching ever will. And then lastly, number five, strengthen the hips. A strong hip is a relaxed hip, not a stretched one. So don't get me wrong, stretching isn't bad, it just isn't the full story. Tight hips are not a hip problem, they are a body pattern problem. When you change the pattern, the hips finally can just let go and relax and do what they're supposed to. If you've been stretching your hips for months or years and nothing changes, your body is telling you something is deeper is happening. And so a movement assessment will show you what's pulling your hips out of alignment, how your gait is affecting your tension, how your core and pelvis are interacting, and what your fascia is trying to protect you from. It's really it's the first step to finally getting your hips to relax for real, you know. So when you're ready, schedule a movement assessment at Iron City Biomechanics. Let's rebuild the pattern, not the symptom. Move better, live stronger. Iron City Biomechanics.